Hey Scarlett, how are you doing today?
Hey, good. How are you, John?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm my cat, of course, as soon as I come on live, she jumps up and wants to start being vocal.
I heard
But
that. Let's see her. Is it a her?
yeah, this is Bella. So I just
Ah,
adopted her a few months back, and she's very cuddly and very warm, and yeah, so she's wonderful to have in the house.
ah.
Yeah.
I love that she's doing this live
Of
Instagram with us.
course, she didn't want to be on my lap all day until suddenly I jump on live and she's like, "Oh, I got to come and jump in front of the
That's
camera." You know,
interesting, isn't it?
yeah. But so how are you doing today? How's your day going? I know you're busy, very busy, but how are things?
Things are really good. So, hello everybody. Thanks for joining us. John and I talked about doing this because we wanted to include you all in our conversation about why things like this happen and what we can do to prevent them. My name is Scarlett Lewis. I'm the founder of the Choose Love Movement. And I founded this organization after the murder of my 6-year-old son, Jesse McCord Lewis, at Sandy Hook Elementary School. And the amazing thing is, he wrote a message on our kitchen chalkboard shortly before he died. It was 3 words: nurturing, healing, love. And I was astounded because I realized then that that was the solution, that people that can give and receive love, people that feel good about themselves, don't want to cause harm. It's hurt people that hurt people. So I actually kind of had a different reaction after my tragedy. I wanted to find the root cause, the root cause. I didn't want to address the issue per se, but I wanted to address the grievance. It's called the grievance end of the pathway to violence. For I think for too long we've really just solely focused on the other end, the attack end and hardening and all of that. And I really wanted to go to the grievance to find out what kind of grievance, what kind of suffering, what kind of pain leads somebody to do something like that. And by the way, I wanted to talk to people who had perpetrated these crimes in order to see, what could we have done to keep you from doing this? What were your needs that weren't met? And I really, I reached out to John. People were sending me your TikTok videos, and I know that they were very controversial, some of them, but I listened to what you were saying, and I do believe in redemption. I believe that people can make horrible mistakes and that they can learn from them and grow from them, and that they can want to be part of the solution. And I know that from my work in prisons, from previous conversations that I've had with other school shooters. And, I have this thing in my heart where every time something like this happens, I get texts, and the texts say evil or monster, like name calling and this total judgment. And yes, what people can do from pain is awful, but I know that it's what they did that is monstrous and evil. But we all have this light of humanity within us. We all have this need to love and be loved. And I think there's always something, there's always a way to address the pain. And so that's really why I wanted to have this conversation with you, John. And I've really enjoyed getting to know you. And it might surprise people, but you're a human being. And I really appreciated the fact that you're open and willing to share with me and with the world kind of your story, and you want to use what you've learned to be part of the solution. And that's the same as me. I want to learn, I want to use what I've learned, because I've learned so much over the past 11 years, with really being solely focused on 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 being part of the solution. And so, that's what we're doing together. And I'm really happy that we're on here tonight with everybody. And thank you for listening, everybody, and for joining us.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on so much, and for everybody else who's here, who's listening and watching. Um, because I know that, like you said, a lot of times me speaking up and doing what I have been doing on social media is controversial to a lot of people, and I completely understand that. That some people don't want to see me having a platform, don't want to see me speaking out. They don't want me to be a part of the solution. Or some people say, you know what, if you are going to help out, do so behind closed doors, which I was for a while. However, I kept getting people who were asking me to speak out because, unfortunately, as you well know, I mean, the tragedy in which you lost your son was 11 years ago. But these tragedies, Columbine is coming up on 25 years,
Mhm.
and very little has really changed in the school environment in order to change it. I know that when it comes to politics, one side says guns, one side says mental health, and yet neither side really does anything, which is sad. And as we have seen time and time again, these tragedies happen, victims speaking out, victims asking for change, victims just wanting something different to prevent these shootings from happening. But we often see them getting ignored and even harassed. And, especially what comes to my mind is the March for Our Lives movement. And whether people agree or disagree with their political views, at least we were seeing some type of like real momentum behind victims speaking out, survivors speaking out. Yet nothing really drastic changed, unfortunately. And I think that that's when people kept mentioning that to me, that's what made me feel more comfortable speaking out and being public is okay, if you're going to ignore the victims, try to ignore me. Try to tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about. You know, it's a whole different ballgame when you have somebody who's actually been the one holding the gun, and it's very difficult for a lot of people to hear. So they attack the fact that they don't want to hear me on a platform. Period. But my message is solid. So many people have reached out to me and said, you know what, I don't like you, but I like what you're saying. You know, and that's what I try to tell people is I'm not here to be liked. I'm not here for forgiveness or even redemption. I'm here for change. Because if I'd come home from prison and these shootings had been addressed and they were no longer happening, you wouldn't be hearing me speaking out and sharing my story, what happened, why I did what I did. No, I would have just came home and gone about my life. I'm here sharing my story because nothing's changed, because we need more change. We need to be implementing these solutions that you and I have spoken about, and your organization has been working on it. Could you please tell us about the Choose Love movement and everything that you've been doing in schools for the past few years?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's interesting because after you're talking about how nothing has changed, and after Sandy Hook, I really saw the polarization. Really, it would open my eyes to it, watching the anti-gun movement, and then the other side, and it was like, wow, these guys are so far apart, and there is no way that we're going to solve this with polarization, with people coming from different points of view. There has to be a way that we can meet in the middle to work together on a solution. And really, that's why I started the Choose Love movement, because we all have a want and need to love and be loved. This, we know through the research since Columbine, that a lot of the issues stem from lack of connection, lack of belonging, lack of feeling seen. And so I started this movement in hopes that it would be a place where everyone could come together to be part of the solution, like the far right, the far left. It's it's a universal language. It's something that we all have in common. And then I also kind of joke and said, well, and it's also like, nothing, people can't come up to me and say choose love, that's a really stupid idea. So I thought I had all my bases covered. And I realized that we needed more love, connection, and belonging in schools, and we needed to teach it. And we also needed to teach kids how to manage their pain. There is a lot of pain, and that is another human condition. We all feel pain. Everybody that has joined has felt physical, mental, and emotional pain. And we need to have skills and tools to be able to manage that, because pain has a purpose. It's there to help us grow. But we need to recognize that. And instead of resisting, avoiding, numbing ourselves, we need to have the courage to stand up to it, to face it, to get curious, to determine how we're going to grow through it. So I created a program, and it's really based on Jesse's message of nurturing, healing, love, that translates into this really powerful formula, starting with courage. And that's based on Jesse's courage, where he stood up to Adam Lanza, who blasted through the front doors of Sandy Hook Elementary School when he had killed his principal and guidance counselor right outside his first grade classroom door. By the way, the same classrooms that Adam Lanza himself had attended when he was in first grade. And when he turned into Jesse's classroom, the gun ran out of bullets, and Jesse called for his friends to run. He saved 9 of his classmates' lives before losing his own. So teaching that courage, we all have the capacity for that courage, the courage that this little 6-year-old boy showed. But we have to, science says that courage is like a muscle. We have to practice it and learn about it to strengthen it. And by the way, that's the courage to be kind when someone's not being kind to you, the courage to face pain instead of using substances or scrolling through your phone or doing whatever you do to try to avoid it, hurting other people, right? It takes courage to thoughtfully respond with love, which is what we teach. And then nurturing in Jesse's message means gratitude. And gratitude, when you have a regular gratitude practice, it strengthens you from the inside out to be able to face difficulty and challenges in your life and move through them with strength and grace. And then forgiveness. Forgiveness was a huge part of my personal journey. And in Jesse's message, healing literally means forgiveness. And people say this is something that you don't forgive. You just don't forgive this. But, I've learned personally, and all the decades of research behind forgiveness show that forgiveness is for yourself. It's a gift that you give yourself. And it's so that person that hurt you doesn't have control over you and your life and your thoughts and your feelings and your behavior and how you show up in relationships. Forgiveness lets you let it go and rise above it. And then compassion in action. Love is compassion in action. And that is having the courage to step outside of whatever is going on in your life with an outward focus to help other people. By the way, that's a great thing to do. That's how you combat loneliness, with an outward focus. I know when you feel lonely and you feel disconnected and isolated, what you want to do is go inside, and it makes you want to isolate further. But in actuality, if you have the courage to step outside of that bad feeling, that fearful feeling, to reach out to others, to volunteer, to do a kind act, that is the antidote to loneliness. And all of that is the way that you choose love. And it's the way that I learned to move through my tragedy, my pain. It's what I use every day when I have a challenge that comes up in a relationship or anything else in my life. It's the way that I deal with pain, and it works. So this is a curriculum that we give away, by the way, because I think it's so important. I know that it would have saved Jesse's life. It would have saved Adam Lanza's life. It would have saved him from so much suffering, the suffering that led him to perpetrate the tragedy at Sandy Hook Elementary School. And I've seen it. I've been in school, and it's also part of my healing because, you know, one of the things that we teach and the science behind compassion is that all the love that you give out, all the service, all the nurturing, healing love comes back to you. It helps and heals yourself. And this is definitely something I didn't know this, by the way, before the Sandy Hook tragedy and my personal tragedy. This is what I've learned. Pain helps you grow. It's called post-traumatic growth. And I'd never heard of that term before, but it's actually there for a reason to help you grow. And I have grown so much, and everything that I've learned, I've put into this program for pre-K through 12th grade. It is there for kids. It is free because we want it everywhere, because there's not another program like it. This is the only program grounded in love and post-traumatic growth. And it is so important. It is the pathway to thriving, not just surviving in life, but thriving. And so everybody that joined, and I think we have some teachers, we have some administrators
Hmm.
that are on here. I recognize some I
Yeah.
don't, but please help us spread the message, because this is so important. These are the essential life skills that kids need to move through life, and it's what we need in our families. It's what employers are looking for. It is literally the pathway to
Yeah.
flourishing.
Thank you so much for all of that, because it really is. There is a pathway, not just as we talk about in the perpetrator's mind, the pathway to violence, but there's a way to intercede that. And there's a pathway to a life of connection, love, and power in a positive way. And that's what you've been teaching for years now. And for those of you who don't know, uh, you can go and check out more of her story and the free curriculum at chooselovemovement.org. It's a very powerful message, and the curriculum is great, and it's free. And even if you're not a teacher, even if you're not in the school administration, if you have kids, you can check it out and go through a lot of it with your children. Or if you're a grown kid, like I think all of us are at heart, you can go and check it out just for the practices, like you said, of gratitude and being mindful of things that we should be thankful for every day, or working on forgiveness, or working on compassion. Whatever exercises may be coming up on a day-to-day basis can help all of us to grow and be healthier. And I want to address a few of the comments, or people, in the comment section. First, I want to let you know, Scarlett, there's somebody, their account is called Shoot Films, Not Peeps, and there's somebody who's been following me for a little while. They are trying to use film and storytelling as a way to draw attention to this and how we can help prevent these tragedies in their form of art, which is film. And I think that that's really
I do
wonderful. So they've
too.
been,
Thank you.
yeah. And then you kind of answered this, because Kaylee had asked, does the love also reach for the perpetrator too? But you spoke a bit about Adam Lanza, and if you'd be willing to, again, because I think that's a very powerful message right there, is forgiveness and compassion for the perpetrator, for the man who murdered your son. Can you talk about that for a second?
Yeah, I can. I know that there is some resistance to the message of forgiveness, but I'll tell you one thing. Following that horrific day, I made my mind up that I did not want to be another victim of Adam Lanza. And Jesse had an older brother, and I knew that I was modeling for him how to move through this tragedy. And literally, I knew in my heart, John, that somebody that could do something so heinous must have been in a tremendous amount of pain. I just felt that. So even from the very beginning, you know, I I I saw, you know, so much anger. And of course, I mean, it's justified, right? I totally understood that. But at the same time, I felt like, I felt like I needed to take my part of the responsibility for what happened in my community as well, so that I could be part of the solution. And I'll tell you, like with forgiveness, people talk about forgiveness, they talk about letting it go. And we teach that it is a choice that you make, and then a process, because the anger does come back up, and that's okay. It may be a process that you work on for the rest of your life. But here's the key, I think, to forgiveness. And I've actually learned this through the last, I don't know, few years, actually. And it really connected forgiveness and compassion in action to me in a really, really powerful way, based on the journey that I've had. And what I realized is that if you can find love in your heart, if you can find understanding, compassion, if you can get curious about the point of pain that drove somebody to do what they did, and you actually feel compassion for them, you replace the anger, the hatred, resentment, the even the sadness and anguish with compassion, you are in the driver's seat. You're in control. You don't, the other person is not dragging you down, weighing you down, having control over your thoughts that impact your feelings, that impact your behavior. It being able to find that love, and people have asked me that a lot, by the way. So I talk about the formula and they go, oh, well, does it extend to Adam Lanza? And I said, it absolutely does. It absolutely does extend. And in that way, you know, that's the strongest response is love. And it's not hatred, it's not anger and revenge. And if I felt that, it would only be hurting me and those around me. Adam killed himself at the school. And you know, I know people that just have been destroyed by similar things. But I, you know, my ability, my practice of compassion for him has really been one of the great strengths that's helped me choose love and lead this choose love movement and be part of the solution and do it. By the way, this was really important to me too. One more thing, like before Jesse's murder, it was the boys and I, and we had so much fun. We had joy every day and wonder and awe, like moments of it every day. And I remember when Jesse was murdered, and I thought, wow, am I never going to feel joy again? I actually had a mom that had lost a son to tragedy 20 years earlier, and she came in to talk to me really early, and she said joy was gone. And I thought, I don't want that. I want to feel joy. I want us to still have a good time. I know that's what Jesse would have wanted. I have one life to live, and I want to live it well. And you know what? The only way that I knew to do it was through forgiveness and compassion and loving, and absolutely just loving. So it is authentic, it is real, and it does help me stay strong for sure.
Yeah, and you definitely are strong. I can tell you, I've been sharing your story with other people, and I always tell them the fact that you not only talk about this, but you're doing all of this. You know, the fact that you reached out to me, the fact that you've reached out to other school shooters, people who have taken the lives of many innocent people, and you've been willing to have that open-minded and open-hearted discussion with them about what was going on in your life, what led you down this path, and how could people have helped you. The fact that you're able to do that, it's extremely strong, it's inspiring, and it kind of lets me know that there is a path forward, there is an ability to prevent these tragedies from happening, and there are wonderful people out there who have been impacted in horrible ways who believe in this and who, just like you, will make it a reality. And I'm so happy to have met you. It's been a beautiful past couple of months, the conversations that we've had. And so I want to ask you too, I want to discuss a little something because I know that I have a few people who follow me, as we've discussed. For those who are currently in a dark mindset, who are struggling, who maybe idolize or look up to these shooters, these perpetrators, these murderers,
Mhm.
because some people, they feel alone, they feel that loss of connection, they don't feel that joy in, you know, spending time with their family, because maybe that's not happening, maybe they've been through extreme abuse and they want to lash out at other people's joy. So what is your message for them? What is your message for those who are struggling right now and really just are in the darkest of places?
Yeah, I would say that reach out for help, you know, and it does take courage, because there are people there that will help. You know, recently I went through a tough time, but it's not that dark. But you know, it humbled me, and I had to reach out and ask for help. I was very vulnerable, and it just renewed my love and hope for mankind, because people stepped up in such big huge ways, and there are people that are out there to help you. I think, John, that you're a really good example, for people that are struggling so much, because you you were in that dark place. You perpetrated a crime, a heinous crime, and you spent 17 years in jail. And so in my mind, you served your time, and you're proving right now that you can learn from mistakes. I mean, there's not anybody on here that hasn't made a mistake. Probably not as big as yours, but we've all made mistakes, and that's how we learn in life. And if you can make a mistake of your magnitude, you didn't murder anybody. um if you could make the mistake of your magnitude and turn it around, like you were in the darkest place, you thought you were going to die, you were suicidal, and if you can turn it around, then anybody that's listening right now, you can too. There is hope. One of the things that we teach is a superpower within us, and it's we have several superpowers, by the way, but one of those things is gratitude, and just thinking of something that you're grateful for, even in the darkest of moments. If you can think of me, that I was so afraid to view my son's body in his coffin. I mean, it's just like unimaginable, the stuff that I went through. And but I knew even during that time that it was so important that I stay connected to gratitude. And even during that time, just unimaginable pain, just thinking that I was going to dissolve and die. I didn't want to kill myself, but I was surprised that my body had form. I was in so much pain. And even then, though, that gratitude, the gratitude for the love that I was shown as a victim's parent, the gratitude for my family and friends that came around me, the gratitude for the little notes that I got from kids, sorry for your lost, just the gratitude for the love that we received from the town, and just my neighbors bringing warm meals to my door for 6 months every night, and coordinating that. Like, there was so much to be grateful for. I'm telling everybody out there, this is what we teach in the program, so that when you're in that dark place, and people go to that dark place. I mean, everybody has a dark night of the soul at one point or another during their life. Life is tough. Life is hard. I mean, let's not pretend or sugarcoat it. We don't in the program either. We talk a lot about pain, because that's a lot of life. It is really difficulty. Every single day that you wake up, you're facing challenges. But if you can wake up in the morning before you open your eyes, and you can say, I'm grateful for another chance. I am grateful that the sun came up today. I'm grateful for my breath, because that's all I can think about is to be grateful for. I'm grateful for running water. I'm grateful for warm water and how it feels on my body. Just the most basic of things. Then you will be okay.
Yeah.
You will be okay. And I really think that now, ironically, John, you're a good role model, because you made mistakes and you don't deny it. You don't sugarcoat it. You don't try to make excuses or defend yourself. That was one thing that I really liked about you. You just tell it like it is. Yeah, I made a horrible mistake, but I think that you can learn from my story, and that's why I've reached out to school shooters, because I believe we can learn from your story. Instead of doing what we keep doing and expecting a different result, instead of, only focusing on this billion-dollar industry now of hardening schools and active shooter drills and really focusing on the problem, like, how did that work out for us with the war on drugs? How is that working out with us on mental health? How does that even work out with us on bullying and all the anti-bullying programs that focus on bullying? Um, Instead of these anti-movements, how about leaning in? How about learning from the people that actually do it? Yeah, it's a hard conversation. It wasn't an easy thing for me to reach out to you, but you have the key. You know why you did this, and if you're willing to share that with the world and talk about it, share your pain that you were feeling, and then also now having been there, which not a lot of us go to, thankfully, but having an idea of what could have kept you from doing that, I mean, there's the golden ticket right there. I think that we need to listen to you and we need to learn from you, and I'm grateful for you.
Yeah. I appreciate that, and I want to go to something that you talk about in the Choose Love movement, that's in line with what you were just saying, and that's for those who might be struggling, and be depressed, anxious, angry. If you can replace one negative thought with a positive one, that's a huge movement right there. If you can realize this one thought that I keep having or pops up in my head, that this is a negative thought, that this is, and you can label it with your emotion, whether it's anger, frustration, rage, or even just sadness, depression. And if you can look even deeper into why am I feeling that way? And because one of the biggest things that I learned in prison was that anger is a secondary emotion. We become angry after another emotion, after we feel disrespected, belittled, ignored, something along those lines. Then we follow it up with anger, feeling that anger, if we act out on it, will somehow give us control over the situation. And so I hope that those who maybe struggle can recognize, even if you can't even replace it and you can't even think of a positive thought, at least recognize when you have a negative thought popping up in your mind, label it as a negative thought. I hope that one day you can replace it with a positive thought, and I hope that one day you can continue to replace your negative thoughts with positive thoughts as they continue to arise in your mind. But
And
first, I
here's
want,
the trick. Here's the trick to that, John.
yeah,
You can only focus on one thought at a time.
yeah,
Everyone listening, this is the secret to this whole thing. You can only focus on one thought. So if you're having an anxious, negative, angry, hateful, vengeful thought, switch it out for something grateful. And yeah, it's not that easy, but there's always something to be grateful for, and you can't focus on two thoughts at once. So yeah, are you going to go back to negative? Maybe. Start writing down things that you're grateful for. I tick off gratitudes all day long in my mind to keep myself up. There's a good question on here. It says thought let's see, somebody said thoughts on bullying causing mass shootings. Yeah, I mean, we have a bullying problem, and this despite billions of dollars being spent on anti-bullying programs across the country. And anti-bullying never really made sense to me. Like, if I had both, I'm holding my phone, but it's like two fists coming together, right? If you look at the logo for bullying, it's like a fist with a red circle around it and a line through it. It's like, no, you can't solve something with the same
right.
thing. Anti-bullying, it's a double negative. How about teaching kids how to manage their pain, how to choose love? And then for the bullied, how about having, like, we have this choice moment where we ask kids to pause if somebody's not being kind to you, to pause in the moment, get curious about what their point of pain is, because if somebody's not being kind, they are coming from a point of pain, period. If I am feeling good, I'm going to be smiling at you. But if I'm not feeling good, that's when I'm going to be unkind. So if somebody's unkind to you, says something snarky, hey, this is kids and big kids. Because where do you think the kids learn bullying?
Yeah.
Seriously. Okay. So big kids listening, pause and get curious about what that other person's point of pain is. And you may not know it, but you know that they are controlled by their fear center in their brain. You know that they're not feeling good. And so hopefully you can thoughtfully respond with love. What does that look like? Well, it looks like courage to pause in the first place because somebody's not being nice to you and getting curious, but it also looks like forgiveness. Okay, I understand, like, you don't normally act like this, or you said that to me and that's not nice, but it's not a reflection of me, it's a reflection of you. I forgive you, and actually I feel compassion for you because I know that you're not feeling good, or you would never have said that to me. And I do think that, and I have heard situations that prolonged bullying has led to school shootings. In fact, I'll say the Sandy Hook Elementary school shooting. I will say this because in the report it said there was no sign of bullying. However, I had actual students that had gone to school with Adam Lanza that had said there was tons of bullying. And so, that's very painful. And not only bullying, but neglect. I mean, I could tell you stories from Adam Lanza's childhood, even the time that he was at Sandy Hook Elementary School, and you would begin to feel empathy for him. You would begin to feel compassion, and it might surprise you, because we automatically think like, good guy, bad guy, right? But we're all in this together. We have to figure this out together. And listening and taking responsibility for what's going on in our communities. When you take responsibility and you make a positive action, that's the opposite of anxiety. And by the way, we need everyone to step up to be part of this. Like, it doesn't work anymore to rail against politicians or leaders when something like this happens, or to point the finger at the anti or the pro movement. That doesn't work anymore, because, by the way, if somebody of that caliber had been able to fix it, they would. It's going to be you and I. So let's try to figure it out right here. That's why John and I are having conversations, because we're trying to figure it out. And we're so happy that you all joined us and that you're here with us. Thank you, because I know that you're interested in this conversation as well.
Yeah, and I think one of the important things that we can be doing and trying to implement, as you said, right? If politicians, they're unable to really do anything, okay, well, on a local level, what can we be doing? And that's why what you have been doing, is helping schools on a local level, although you've gone international with it, but on a local level, schools can be adopting the choose love movement, or just something where we want to bring emotional intelligence into the schools, where we are able to make sure that the students' emotions are a part of the discussion and a part of what they're learning about. Because when students better learn what's going on within them, and what's causing it, that it's natural oftentimes, and how they can express it with other people, how they can communicate it with other people, and how they can identify it in other people and help them when they see other people going through these issues. That emotional intelligence right there, when that becomes a part of the school's curriculum, it helps improve things, not just for those who might end up on a dark path of wanting to hurt others, but also, well, for the bullies. As somebody asked, does compassion help with bullies? Yes, I believe emotional intelligence, raising it not only within themselves, but within the people around them who might be able to turn to them differently, that will help them as well. Not only that, but the emotional intelligence, will help increase people's awareness, and will hopefully influence the supply of resources that we have, because we need more resources. We need more counselors, more brain health specialists, right? Because we start talking about brain health, not just mental health, but brain health, because you can physically, tell somebody's brain health with MRIs and all different types of tests. So that is something of substance that we can see. And we want to be able to help people on that level. So it'll influence everybody, whether it's the bully, the person who's being bullied, the person who's just on the sidelines but who's suffering from something going on at home, the people who might end up going down the road of addiction or even suicide. We can prevent so many of these tragedies from happening if only we make emotional intelligence a part of the core curriculum. And with that emotional intelligence comes that compassion, that understanding, and that connection that oftentimes people feel that they're lacking when they do go and lash out to hurt others. So I think that that's why it's so important that we're talking about that. So if people want to know what they can do, is they can look into the curriculum that the Choose Love movement has. They can look into emotional intelligence and how can you teach it within yourself, within your family, within your community, and within the schools locally to you.
Yeah, I'm seeing some people that I love very much that have just joined, and thank you very much. Some family members as well. I love this question. What are your thoughts on the stigma of people with violent thoughts seeking help, opening up, and getting shamed for it? And you know, I that's the stigma is a tough one. That's why I wish that we wouldn't say mental health. I wish that we would call it, I like what you were calling it, John, brain health. Because you know what we teach in the Choose Love movement is that emotions are neither good nor bad. Emotions are just emotions. Emotions are data coming into your brain, telling you something, and it's your job to figure out, like, if you're not feeling good, there's a reason for it, and there's a shift, there's a choice that you have to make, and you are capable of making that choice. My prison work has really amazed me because a lot of people don't realize they have a choice and they don't know what to do to make that choice to feel better. And you know, it's not rocket science, but the interesting thing is you have to learn some of these character, social, emotional competencies in order to do that. And teaching kids at a young age, I mean, I'm just so thrilled. We're literally creating the world that we want to live in, one that is safe, peaceful, and kind, because these kids are learning how to thoughtfully respond with love. That sounds like a nice world to me. Um, so I think, you know, it's important that you do reach out and you ask for help and you have that courage to be able to do it. And you know, you find the person. You ask for one, you ask someone and they don't help you or they shame you, you ask somebody else, because there is somebody out there that can help you. And but that does take courage.
And that right there is the key, is if one person isn't giving you the help that you need, keep looking for help from others. Don't give up, because there is somebody out there who will be able to help you. And I saw that Kaylee mentioned up above that she works with a organization where they're able to help people. And yeah, Kaylee, if you're still watching, please do send me a message, and we will get that information out there for those who need it, for those who need somebody to speak to. And I also want to make sure that people are very aware of, if you are in need of help, the suicide hotline, just 988. You can talk with somebody, you can text with somebody, you can have somebody right now to talk to who understands what it's like to go through that dark place and who can help you right now. So please be mindful of that. And also, you know, I think that it's always important that people understand that you're not as alone as you might feel. There are so many people going through whatever you're going through. And even if you are somebody like the questioner had asked, if you are somebody who has had those dark, violent thoughts towards others, you're not alone in that as well. I've obviously been very public with the horrible crime that I committed, and that's made others feel comfortable coming to me and sharing with me how they've gone through thinking about the same thing. And more people than you would think have reached out to me, and people in different positions, like, you know, I'm actually been surprised, I'll be honest with you, with how many women have reached out to me. And yeah, women might not be as likely to act out on those violent fantasies and thoughts, but how many women have expressed to me how they have thought about doing something pretty violent, pretty horrible against one person or several people in public. You're not alone, trust me. And there are those who can relate with you, and there are those who can help you. So please always remember that. And I see we got one more question that's popped up. Well, actually, we got a couple of questions. Oh, yeah. So, what if you find comfort in the misery? A lot of people start to feel like you're just so used to the depression, the misery. It's almost like a comfort blanket in a weird way. I've heard that
Because
from
you're
people.
familiar with it. You're comfortably
Mm,
uncomfortable. And then there and then you start having a fear. What if this misery went away? Who would I be? Because I identify with this. And that takes courage. We go back to the formula for choosing love. It takes courage. It's what you know, but you have one life and you do not have to spend it in misery. You can choose a different path. And I go back to the formula for everything. So having the courage just to say, this doesn't feel good. I don't want to feel like this. And I'm going to try, I'm going to try gratitude. I'm going to try having a regular practice of gratitude. I'm going to put a pen and a piece of paper by my bed. I'm going to write down 3 things in the morning, 3 things at night, different things that I'm grateful for. I remember doing this with my son right after the tragedy, and we kept a notebook, which I found just the other day. And each of us wrote 3 things that we were grateful for. They had to be different every night. So we had a little bit of fun with it. And it's so amazing to go back and look at that really dark place in our lives and realize, oh, wow, we had some really great stuff that we were grateful for. But if you don't recognize that, then it passes you by. But gratitude, the science behind gratitude is that it literally strengthens you from the inside out. When you start having those thoughts, switching your thoughts from agony to gratefulness, you will start to strengthen yourself from the inside out. That helps you consider forgiveness, something that may have seemed so far away, like you could never do, an impossibility. All of a sudden you think, wow, I think that I can do that now. I think I want to do it. I want to make the choice. And you start exploring that, and you can pull yourself out of it. And I think it's really important, John, what you said, that you're not alone. I mean, I think I shared with you when we were having breakfast the other day that I've had some pretty dark thoughts myself. I didn't act on them, but I've been really angry in my life and felt really betrayed, and I didn't know how to move through it. I didn't have the skills and tools. I wasn't taught in school. I wasn't taught at home. And now I have the skills and tools, and I don't stay in that place for very long. I get there. It's not that I don't have sadness. I don't have anger. I absolutely do. But I don't like how it feels. And I know that I can make a choice, and I know how to switch it now.
yeah, and that's what takes time. That's what takes practice, is learning how to, either switch it off, as you say, or learning how to just ride it out. And I think that's one of the important things to realize too, is that, when we talk about our emotions and everything, the old adage, this too shall pass, it's true. Every thought, every emotion that you feel is temporary. And I think that's why, as we get older and where you're realizing that more and more, it, it becomes a little bit easier. But I want to get back to the fact that it is an exercise. And with any exercise, it is very difficult in the beginning. But the more that you do it and the more consistent that you are with doing it, the easier it will become. You're not going to go out and run a marathon tomorrow if you've never really ran, right? No, but if you do a little bit of training, a little bit, you go out and you run for 5 minutes and 10 minutes and you keep going at it, with time, you'll be able to do more and more. And it's like that with forgiveness. It's like that with compassion. It's like that with gratitude. All of that is an exercise that's really difficult. And sometimes you'll really hate doing it. But when you force yourself to do it, you'll feel a little bit better. And as time goes on, it just becomes, almost like breathing. It just comes naturally to you. I mean, you'll always have times where you fall off and you got to, oh, snap, I have been doing that for the past couple of days or weeks. And you got to come back to it. You know, it's like that with so many things. And as Leanna talks about with forgiveness, a great forgiveness practice, because you talked about being able to forgive Adam Lanza, the man who murdered your
Mm-hmm.
son. But it starts off forgiveness, at least for most of us, being able to first forgive the small grievances that we have. One training exercise that I was given was first you bring into your mind maybe some of your loved ones, whether it's a family member or a very close friend, somebody you love, and think about something small that they've done that's kind of upset you at one point or
Ooh,
another.
that might be too, that's a lot,
You
I
think
think. I
so?
think it's harder to forgive people that you love and that are very close to you than people that aren't. I would just say, well, good, you started high. I would say to everybody, start with somebody that maybe you don't love,
Mm-hmm.
that is, you work with, that was snarky, that did a little something, and practice on there. Because the amazing thing is, um, every time you do it, every time you make the choice, you're literally wiring your brain towards strength, towards forgiveness. And at the same time, you're pruning your brain away from victimization, away from anger and hatred. It is incredible. We do that with every single thought. In fact, I just want to say the whole Choose Love movement started at Jesse's funeral when I got up to speak. And I said, this whole tragedy started with an angry thought. And an angry thought can be changed. So I asked everybody, think about what you're thinking about and change one angry thought into a loving thought every day. And I said, it'll make you feel better, because our thoughts directly uh, implicate how we feel. And then how we feel is how we show up, how we behave. And so everybody went out to the four corners of the United States. They start calling me, emailing me, texting me about a week later, saying that one simple act had completely changed their life. If you want to start with your thoughts. Just start with think about what you're thinking about. And if it's not something good, you can switch it up with gratitude. You can switch the focus of your lens. Where you're focusing, you're going. If you're focusing on those negative thoughts, and by the way, our brain's wired with a negative bias. We have more negative thoughts every day than we do positive. So that's just normal. That's something that we have to know. This awareness gives us power. And then the understanding that, we switch the negative lens to the positive through gratitude. So start at the thought level. And then what John said, sorry I cut you off, John, but I'm thinking of myself, like I have some forgiveness to do myself, and I'm still
Well,
working on it. And it's harder with people that you love, your family members. For me, I know there's some quotes that say that too. But if you start with somebody that you know that you have a grievance
yeah,
with, start with, like, oh my gosh, that person I'm renting space in my head to that person. I don't even really know that person that well, and I'm gonna let it go. I'm taking my personal power back. I'm not gonna let that person, I'm not gonna be going home at night and talking about the guy that cut
right.
me off, while I was waiting in traffic, or the person who was a jerk at the grocery store. I'm not letting I'm going to forgive that person, because I don't know I pause. I don't know, getting curious what their life is like, what they're going through, because they're probably going through something. And so, you know what? I'm going to choose forgiveness, and I'm going to be the stronger person for it. And I'm going to start rewiring my brain
Exactly.
towards love.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody said, it's like somebody who's rude to you on the subway, right? For anybody who's been on any type of subway system or tram system like that, you're going to have somebody who's rude to you, and they're a perfect stranger. And it's usually going to be something pretty small that pisses you off in the moment, but later on, you can look back and forgive them for it. Because it's all about starting off with whatever's easiest for you to be forgiving on a daily basis, whether it's a stranger, somebody close to you, those small grievances that you have that you can forgive somebody for. And slowly you build up to the more complicated issues. And next thing you know, you're able to forgive people for those larger issues. And for many people, forgiving yourself might be the most difficult of all.
Mm.
Even if you haven't done anything as horrible as I have, I'm sure we all hold on to things that we hate ourselves for. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we can do is because if you're able to forgive yourself, then you're going to open yourself up to much more
Mm-hmm.
love and you're going to be that much more able to love others and just impact your environment in a more positive
Mm-hmm.
way. But like I said, it's an exercise. All exercises take time. They're difficult in the beginning. You just got to stay consistent with them and build your way up.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. This is such a great conversation, John, and I'm really glad that we connected, and I'm really happy that you're part of the Choose Love movement now, and that, you're a New York ambassador for us and working on getting our prison program into more prisons, and hopefully we'll be doing assemblies together and really doing a lot of good. I think your story is very powerful. You're very articulate. You have a way of discussing this without, I mean, you take responsibility for what you did. You served your time, and by the way, you had a terrible tragedy after you got released from prison. I mean, you were attacked with a man with swords, and he damaged you for good. And you kind of you put everything that you're saying right now to the test, and you showed up in court and you forgave the man. And that is, I think that that's really good for all of us because we've all made mistakes, and there is redemption. We can forgive ourselves. We can learn from our mistakes and use them to help other people. I think that's why we're here on earth. Honestly, I'm I think I'm I think I'm 54, but I may be 1 year older than that. But what I have learned, I truly believe, is that we're here to learn from our mistakes, from our pain, from our tragedies, and then use what we've learned to help other people. And that's what makes life worth living. They say in order to be happy, you have to have meaning and purpose in your life. And I think that's how you get meaning. This is how you assign a positive meaning to even a tragedy, and how you find purpose is taking what you've learned and helping other people.
Exactly. I also want to ask if anybody has any other questions, please feel free to ask. Um, we've been on here for an hour. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I also want to say that everybody's been through their own struggles in one way or another. And I see social media is such a strong platform because whatever you've been through, whatever you're experiencing, there's a pretty good chance you're going to find a community talking about it on here. I've seen so many people who struggle with addiction and recovery on here. I see so many people talking about how they've been through abusive, childhoods on here, or abusive romantic relationships on here. So many people have been through so many different types of situations. They come on here and they share their experiences, but they also sometimes they're just sharing it because they're still in that dark place of pain and trying to make it through everything. But sometimes they've come out the other side and they're doing much better and they want to help others of, hey, this is what I went through, this is what I experienced, this is what helped me, and I think that this stuff can help you too. So I believe that whatever you've been through, you can connect with others and you can either find the help you need or provide the help that others need. And as Scarlett mentioned, there's a real strong sense of healing, meaning, and purpose in helping others. That's why I think she does what she does today. That's why I do what I do today. And I think that there's so many of us, whatever you've been through, you can have meaning and purpose by helping others through that as well.
And Kaylee just made a strong statement in here. Um, you know, it's interesting because Adam Lanza's mom also tried to get her son help, and was she didn't receive help from the school, and And so, she had to get outside help. And I think that as parents, obviously if your child is acting out, we act out our feelings, that they come out in our behavior. So if you're seeing somebody that's behaving badly, that is what they're feeling. They're wearing it on their sleeves, and they're crying out for help. And what I've realized, I've talked to many school shooters. I have a podcast with school shooters. I've done a book club, and I've really realized that there's almost always crying out for help in some way. Nobody just snaps. This is a long, slow burn of pain, disconnection, isolation, and and there's almost always, I mean, next time something happens, and it will, read in the paper about what the signs were. They write something. They like Adam Lanza, he wrote a story when he was in 5th grade going to Sandy Hook Elementary School. He wrote this handwritten book, and he made copies. He was going to sell it at the school. It's called The Book of Granny. And it was about, he was in 5th grade, remember, it was about a witch that came to Sandy Hook Elementary School. She had a broomstick. The broomstick opened into a semi-automatic weapon, and she murdered children. This was when he was in 5th grade. Now that story, those books, the handwritten, saddle stitched little books that he made, they were taken, but no one ever said anything to him. There was never any response. There was never any help that he got. Can you imagine? Like, I put myself in his shoes, and I thought, wow, if I tried to tell somebody, I don't want to tell them what's in my head, my thoughts, but I'm going to put it on paper, and I'm going to give it to somebody. And if they didn't even respond, they didn't even say anything, they didn't even act shocked. You know what I mean? Like, that would make me feel bad. That would make me feel alone. That would make me feel neglected. And so there's always something. And you said that your son tried to do a school stabbing, and they said they won't do anything because of his age, not even support. uh you know we have to get our kids help. So you go and you reach out and you ask for help. And this is where the courage comes in. Ask until you receive, and you will receive it, but you have to ask the right people. And you're going to get turned down 10 times. And the 11th time, you're going to find help. And it's really important that you do that, because and I actually realized, thinking that the school's responsible for my child while he's there, and then I'm responsible for his safety, his well-being, feeding, loving, all of that when he's with me. But in reality, we're responsible for our children 24/7. It doesn't matter if they're at school. We're responsible for their safety at school as well. And so we really need to be more involved, and we need to demand that we get help. I've had to do that myself, which is why I kind of, when everybody was, you know, uh, blaming Nancy Lanza for giving Adam access to the gun. And yes, she made a horrible mistake. And by the way, she paid for it with 4 shots to the face before he left the house that morning. He murdered his mom. So she paid for her mistakes. But she was a single mom. She didn't get any help. And she had tried to get help from the school. They didn't help her either. She didn't know what to do. She was doing the best that she could with the skills and tools she had, and that's no excuse for the mistake that she made. But you have to keep trying. You can't give up. You have to. Your child is worth it. You keep trying until somebody will help. Um, and I was talking with another victim's mom, and she was telling me, um, that so many people came up to her afterwards and said, I knew it. I knew that he was going to do that. Oh, it doesn't surprise me at all. And she wanted to say, well, then
Yeah.
you're responsible.
Why the fuck didn't you do something?
You're responsible. because and I think that you hear that a lot after a school shooting. Oh yeah, that was a troubled kid, that was a guy that was a loner and always this and that. It's like, we if somebody else isn't doing something, then we have to do it, because we might be on the receiving end of that pain, and that's not where you want to be.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of questions I want to ask you real quick, right? So somebody says that they would love to help. So how can people help you? How can people help the Choose Love movement?
Uh, Thank you so much. I love that. Please reach out to us, contact us. There's many ways that you can help. This is a movement, and it is spread organically by word of mouth. You can help us spread this message into your schools. You can give us contact information and we'll reach out. Just tell people about us. Donate. There's so many different ways that you can help. You can become an ambassador and help us spread this message. John is an ambassador for Choose Love in New York. So there's so many ways, and there's so many people that are helping right now, but we need much more, because these issues are escalating. And I'll tell you one thing, it feels so good to every single day wake up and do something, actions in the direction of a solution. It really, for me, it's helped me overcome anxiety. It's such a good feeling to learn and grow every day with this movement and do something to help people. I mean, it's literally like, I didn't live my life this way before. I wasn't in service. And I remember, like, I'm a Christian, and I was praying, I remember, with my boys, and I would pray, um, you know, use us in some capacity. We help us be instruments of your peace. That's what I would say. And then this happened, and I realized, and I kind of joke about it now. It's like, oh my God, like, I meant on a Saturday, maybe once a year for an hour when it was convenient for us. I didn't mean my entire
Yeah.
life. I didn't mean sacrificing my son. But you know what? Um, Living in service, being in service, it's the only way to live, because all the nurturing, healing love you give out, you get back. So, becoming a part of the movement is really important for your own health and well-being. And it's reach out to us. You can click the contact button and you can get directly to me. We need help. We definitely need help. And this is interesting. How do you deal with hate you guys get for having a different viewpoint? And that's a good question, because John, I know John receives uh hate, and he's considered very controversial. But interestingly enough, so am I. Because I choose love, and that angers some people. But I understand that. I understand that, because literally we're wired as human beings to defend ourselves, to, when somebody is angry, to be angry back at them. But that's not the best way to live. The best way to live, and the strongest way to live, is to choose love and to model that for other people. So I don't read my comments on any sort of social media. I don't care. I, like, John, you mentioned that earlier on. You were like, I realize some people hate me, and I don't I don't care, because I know what's in my heart, and I know what I'm supposed to be doing, and I just do it. And I actually, that really resonated with me. I feel the exact same way. I know what's in my heart. I know that I was put on this earth to literally spread love, spread Jesse's message of love, and do that in any way possible. So I don't really care if people disagree. That's fine. You have a right to disagree. If it angers you, I'm sorry, but I know that this is my path. And it's brought me a lot of joy, actually. That joy, that fun that I wanted to have. I'm able to role model for my son, I hope. And so that's how we deal with it. We just don't pay much attention to it.
Yeah, and I would love to add in there that also be mindful that drama and chaos they receive a lot more attention on social media than the love and the respect. So there's a lot of people who also, as Scarlett says, when you put out nurturing, healing love, you get it in response. And there's so many people who've reached out to me, just as so many people have reached out to Scarlett with that love, with that respect, with that compassion. It's not going to go viral. Unfortunately, that stuff rarely goes viral when somebody's really sharing some love and compassion that they have for somebody, especially when it's a controversial form of love, because Scarlett, for you to say that you have compassion and you forgive Adam Lanza, I think that's the most powerful form of compassion. To get slightly spiritual here, you bring up being a Christian. I tell people that, you know, a lot of the, if not all of the major religions of the world preach compassion. And it's been around for thousands of years, not because you're talking about having compassion for the people you already love and respect and who you get along with. No,
That's
because these people, right? Jesus was preaching compassion for those who are hated normally, right? And that's the same in other religions as well, is compassion is for those who might be hated. It's easy to have compassion for your mom who maybe said something you don't like and just be like, ah, she's still my mom. I love her. She always takes care of me. That's easy, right?
it.
Um, it's difficult. And that's the real true teaching, is to be able to build yourself up, to have compassion for those who are hated, disliked,
Yeah.
who have harmed you, who have taken somebody from you. Those are the forms of compassion, I believe, that have been preached for thousands of years. And those are the most important ways. So just remember that, is just because you see some of the hatred and bullying that happens on social media, there's also 10 times more love out there. And always feel free to open up and share the love that you have in your heart. Um, but just be mindful, there may be some haters out there, but as Scarlett said, you learn, as my therapist said, and my therapist had recommended I read the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. You got to learn it.
On
You
that
got to
book.
learn. Sometimes there is some constructive criticism that haters give sometimes. I have paid attention to a lot of the comments, a lot of the videos of people who don't like me, who hate me. I've only watched a handful, because if I see somebody's just, kind of going on, it's kind of like, okay, I understand. But if somebody's going on and they have something like really seems to be very constructive going on, I pay attention to those ones because I want to learn from those as well. I don't see it as them hating on me. I see it as them wanting me to do something different, to want me to grow. And I've taken that to heart, and I have tried to make sure that I do things differently, according to some people. But again, sometimes you just got to say, I'm sorry. I hope that, whatever, because sometimes they're not really angry at me or you. They're angry at whatever else is going on in life, in their life. And we are just the people that represents that they can vent to or complain about. Obviously, there's a lot of people who've been influenced, or not influenced, but affected by school violence. And then they see me and they want to lash out and speak up against me because of the violence that they've experienced or that has happened in their community. And I'm okay with that. I understand that. But I also hope that those individuals will learn to do something constructive to help their communities, as you have, Scarlett. So I think that's the most important thing.
I think it's really important that you're true to yourself. And I see, some people saying, "Well, we agree, but we're afraid to speak up." That's where you always go back to the formula. That's where the courage comes up. You have to be true to yourself. And I truly believe that each human being has a light. It's the light of humanity within each one of us. And that is a burning flame of love, even if it's just an ember. I mean, I have literally met people that have done the most heinous things you can think about, because I do a lot of prison work. And even in those people, I see that ember. It is there. They show it to me. And it's it's beautiful. And I think that, we we've gotten into this place maybe where, we want to know, who do we hate? Who's the enemy? And by the way, if you're the bad guy, then I'm the good guy. And what's for dinner? Because I'm off the hook for doing anything, right? Because there's the bad guy. But I think it's not as simple as that. And this is what I thought after the Sandy Hook tragedy. It's like I took a step back, I watched everyone obviously really hating and angry at Adam and his mom for giving him the gun. Adam's the Sandy Hook school shooter. And I thought that, I mean, obviously he deserved that. He was responsible for something so totally heinous, such a huge, massive loss of lives. But I thought that, if we ended it there, if we ended it there and just blamed him, and that's it, he's evil, and that's the end of the discussion, and it was all his fault, then it would never have happened before. And it would never have happened again. But wait a minute. This happens. This is now our normal. It's not even a new normal. It's now a normal. Well, whose fault is that? And if we just go through and we blame people and we call them evil, it's like we're not seeing the humanity of it and we're not fixing it. And so we have to realize these are human beings in pain. And I wanted to do that by reaching out to you, John, and humanizing you. You've done a great job of humanizing yourself. But literally, after having talked to you for, quite a few times, and you sharing your story, you were a human being in pain, and you didn't know how to manage that pain, and you didn't know how to express it. And I'm not making excuses for what you did, but if you had been able to manage that pain, if you could have turned that pain around, if you could have realized that pain actually helps you grow, if you had that realization and you could have paused and gotten curious about it, and knew and had some skills and tools in your tool belt of life to be able to manage that pain, you wouldn't have done that. No baby is born a mass murderer or a school shooter. They just aren't. They're cultivated into what they become by pain and their lack of ability to manage that pain. And you know that now. And for you to be out there saying this is more powerful than me, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, but I think we're coming at these tragedies from different points of view, but we're coming to the same conclusion that if we raise emotional intelligence, if we allow our communities and our schools to be more focused on that brain health, on uplifting each and every student that is there and every staff member is there, because I also want to say that our teachers and administrators in the schools don't receive the resources and the support that they need. We need to have a more proactive society that is willing to put the money into helping people in the beginning instead of putting all the money into, prisons and law enforcement for when people have messed up. I believe we can be more proactive, helping build up people's emotional intelligence, like you said, teaching students more awareness on what's going on within them, how to manage that pain, how to use that pain as a way to grow and to become better individuals. If we do that, if we have curriculum that has that as one of its core facets, then we can prevent so many of the tragedies. Then we can prevent so many of the reactive measures that we have in spending. We won't need to spend all the money on prisons and law enforcement and courts and all like that. I mean, those things will always need to be there, but on a much smaller fashion. So that's why I always tell people, it's all about the proactive versus reactive. We can make a difference in our communities, in our schools, if only we just switch some of the priorities and still focus on the academics, but bring in that emotional intelligence as well.
Well, I I learned at one of the last international conferences that I spoke at that the people that build the prisons actually determine the amount of cells they will need by checking out third grade reading scores. And what kind of backwards thinking is that? Uh, how about spending the money helping the kids to learn how to read instead of building prison cells? I mean, there's some changes that we can make. And you know what? Here's the thing, John. We need to prioritize the safety, health, and well being of our children. Our children need to be our priority. And the fact of the matter is, we can keep them safe. We keep our money safe. We can keep our kids safe, and we need to safeguard their health and well-being. We know that they're right in the middle of a mental health crisis. We have 5,400 teens that try to take their lives every single day, and those are the ones that we know about. It's like we need to do a better job. We took our eye off the ball. We've made mistakes, but we need to take responsibility for those and do a better job for our kids, because our kids are our future. And so this is the conversation that we're having right now, is how to do that. And it's to do it differently. It's not to do the same thing over and over expecting a different result. It's doing exactly what you just said. It's being proactive. If you look at that pathway to violence, if you guys want to look that up on the internet, it's used by the Department of Homeland Security. It starts with a grievance, and then it escalates up, ideation, preparation, all the way to the attack end. And how are our brains wired? We're reactive and we focus on the problems. So we focused on that attack end. And when I started out, I thought, wow, almost nobody's focusing on the grievance end, the grievance that leads to the attack. What if we gave kids the skills and tools they need to manage that grievance? Then it wouldn't escalate. It just seems so simple to me. And that's what we've been doing ever since at the Choose Love movement.
Hmm. Yeah, and even I think, hiring more staff at schools who can be able to be those mediators and helping the kids with whether they're having problems with other students, if they're having problems with staff, if they're needing more academic help, there's so many ways in which we can help at that grievance end. And like you said, it's ridiculous that the way that we determine how many prison cells we'll need is by third grade reading levels. That reminds me of, I was lobbying at New York State Capitol for prison reform, and people point out that, especially when you're talking about New York City, like in Rikers Island, they're spending over $100,000 a year per person to house them.
Mm-hmm.
And so the thing is what if you were spending that much money on them when they were juveniles, when they were in school? What if you were spending $100,000 plus, or more? What if we were putting more of that money into each and every student getting the help that they need, instead of giving it to giving it to them when they're in prison, basically?
Yeah, that's interesting because we spend, I think, between $14,000 and $19,000 per student, but then we're not teaching them everything that they need to
No.
know, like how to manage difficulty and challenges. And so then they grow up and pain destroys them and other people. And then we have to pay 100 grand a year for life.
Yeah, and I would like to point out is when some people say that some of the emotional intelligence should be taught at home. Well, what happens when the parents didn't learn it themselves? Or what happens when you do have parents who do have a good amount of emotional intelligence, but their kids' needs are that much higher than what they're equipped with? Because my mom, she did all she could. And then when my needs were going beyond what she could help me out with, she turned to, psychologists and psychiatrists and all like that. But then the thing is what if this help is given to the kids even younger? Because the earlier that we can intervene and help out with a child's development, as you and I have spoken about, actually 0 to 5 years old is when the core, development is going on within the child. So, we want to help them not only in school, but your program, let's not forget, also helps out daycares and helping give daycares the curriculum, the ways to help those toddlers and those babies out. And so that's something for people to remember as well. Um, but that emotional intelligence, it can, and it's not a bad thing. To bring it into the schools is only going to help people. It's only going to make it a more nurturing, healing, and loving place.
It's true. And I will say, and I say regularly when I talk to parents and communities, I didn't have these skills and tools. I didn't learn it at home. I didn't learn it at school. I didn't learn it in a lifetime of working. And I loved my boys, but I couldn't give them what I didn't have. And so, uh, there are a lot of, it was surprising to me. I mean, I graduated from college. I didn't learn it at college either. And I'm talking about emotional management. I'm talking about relationship skills, and all the things that we teach and choose love. I didn't know, and I realized, oh my gosh, if Adam Lanza had known this, he would never have done what he did. He would have grown through his pain. He wouldn't have been taken down by it and been in so much pain that he wanted to take other people down as well. So, really, important that and here's the thing. You're right, we have a pre-K program, and everybody here, if you would go on and print it off, all you have to do is register and you have access to what we have. I tell people, go in and print it off, and if you pass a daycare, drop it off. That's something that you could do, because that is such an important time for a baby's forming brain. And there's so much research that shows that, that can be a very pivotal point in a baby's life. And actually, amazingly, um, that pre-K level is where we have the majority of expulsions. I know that this is going to shock everybody, and you're going to be running to Google to double check me, and go ahead and do it, because it was shocking to me too. That is the age range with the most expulsions. In fact, some states have actually made it illegal to expel these little kids for behavioral issues and aggression. And we need it so much. It starts really early, and we can give them, as you say, as you call it, which I agree, the brain health that they need. This, it's starting early, the emotional management, to understand what they're feeling, and to be okay with it, to just know that it's data, and that's helping them to move through life, to keep them safe, and to be able to change that if they need to.
Yeah, 100%. So for everybody who's interested, you can check out Scarlett's organization, her story. The free curriculum that she has available for everybody is at chooselovemovement.org. She also obviously has an Instagram account and TikTok account for Choose Love Movement. You can go and check out all of her stuff there. And plus the podcast, Choose Love Podcast as
Yeah,
well.
check
Uh,
out the conversation that John and I had. It was such an amazing conversation that it's in 3 parts.
yeah, yeah, we did 3 episodes together because I've enjoyed talking with you so much. It's going to be an ongoing conversation,
Absolutely.
and I want us to be able to have these conversations like we did tonight. I think it went very well, where we have people who can watch live, who can ask questions live,
Yeah.
and be a part of the conversation, because we need more people. We need everybody to be a part of this conversation. And I'm glad that we're able to do it. So I don't want to take up any more of your time, Scarlett. But thank you so much, and thank you to everybody else for coming and being a part of this
Yeah,
tonight.
thank you so much. And this will, John and I will do this on a regular basis to invite people in to this conversation. We have to start changing the way that we think and we talk about what's happening in our communities. And, I anthropologist Margaret Mead has a favorite quote, a famous quote, my favorite quote. And it says, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And you guys coming on and listening tonight, you guys are part of that. And we can do this. We can keep our kids safe. We can give them the emotional intelligence and the life skills that they need to be the best version of themselves. We can do this, but we need your help. And so thanks for joining the conversation. This was the first step. Spread the word, and let's do it again
Yeah, we
soon.
definitely will. And, you know, people can send me a direct message if they want to learn more. You know, as we talked about earlier, if you want to try to implement this in your local schools, we can definitely help you in making that happen. So please feel free to give one of us a message. My messages are wide open, and we can work together in making it happen in your community as well.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. All right, have a great night. And Scarlett, thank you again so much. Have a good night.
Thanks, John.
Bye.
You too. Bye bye.